Captain G1 Park stood at the window of the command center, staring at the stars. They looked the same as always, cold, silent, empty. She pressed her hand against the glass and sighed. 300 years had passed since Earth died, and still no one answered their calls. Behind her, the control room buzzed with quiet activity. Officers worked at their stations, monitoring the planet's defenses. Tayson Colony was home to 150,000 people. As far as they knew, these were the last humans in the entire galaxy. Captain, still nothing on the long-range scanners, reported Lieutenant Hyerin Choi from her station. The young pilot had been born here on Tayson. She had never seen Earth, never known what it was like when humanity filled the stars. To her, this colony was the whole universe. G1 nodded. She remembered Earth. She had been a young officer when the planet burned. The images still haunted her dreams. Cities turning to ash, oceans boiling away, millions of voices crying out then falling silent forever. She had escaped on one of the last ships, watching her homeworld die from space. Today marks 300 years, Dr. Min Ho Kang said quietly as he entered the command center. The colony's chief scientist carried a tablet under his arm. His eyes looked tired but hopeful. Minho never gave up hope. I've upgraded the distress beacon again. Maybe this time someone will hear us, Ji-won wanted to believe him. But after 3 centuries of silence, hope felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. The colony survived on old technology and determination. Their ships were aging. Their weapons were outdated. If anyone attacked them, they wouldn't last long. Keep trying, Ji-won told him, even if no one's listening. The alarm shattered the quiet moment. Red lights flashed across every console. Erin's hands flew over her controls. Captain! Hyperspace signatures detected. Multiple contacts emerging from FTL. Ji-won's heart jumped into her throat. For one wild second, she thought maybe Minho's beacon had worked. Maybe other humans had found them. Then the tactical display updated, and her blood turned cold. 12 warships appeared in orbit above Tayson. They were massive, covered in weapons and armor. Their design was alien and aggressive. These weren't human ships. These were predators, battle stations, Ji-won commanded. Throughout the colony, alarms began to wail. Get every fighter ready to launch. Activate all defensive systems, a transmission came through. The face that appeared on the main screen was reptilian, with scales like dark metal and eyes like yellow fire. This was Warlord Kreth of the Vrelnath Empire. Ji-won had heard stories about them. They conquered worlds and stripped them of resources. Attention, primitive colonist, Kreth's voice was sharp and mocking. This world now belongs to the Vrelnath Empire. You have 1 hour to surrender all military assets and submit to Imperial authority. Resist and we will destroy you. Kreth paused when he saw Ji-won's face on his own screen. His eyes widened slightly. Humans, the extinct species? How amusing. We thought you all died 300 years ago. I suppose the galaxy missed a few of you. He laughed, and the sound made Ji-won's skin crawl. Surrender, ghosts. Don't make this difficult. Ji-won cut the transmission without responding. She turned to her officers. Every face in the room showed fear, but also determination. These people were survivors. They had lived their entire lives on the edge of extinction. We're not surrendering, she said firmly. Hire and get your squadron ready. Minho, boost our shields as much as possible. Everyone else prepare for combat. Captain, we can't win this fight, one officer said quietly. They have 12 warships. We have 10 old fighters and some orbital platforms. I know, Ji-won admitted, but we're human. We don't give up just because the odds are bad. We'll fight, and we'll make them remember that humanity doesn't surrender. Heron ran to the fighter bay. Other pilots were already suiting up, their faces pale but resolute. They all knew this might be a one-way mission. But someone had to try. Someone had to show the galaxy that humans were still here, still fighting. As Hyerin climbed into her cockpit, she checked her weapon systems. Everything was green. She took a deep breath and activated her radio. All fighters, this is Lieutenant Choi. Remember your training. Stay together, watch each other's backs, and let's show these Vrelnath that humans aren't easy prey. The fighters launched into space. From the command center, Ji-won watched them go. Her hands clenched into fists. These were her people. Young men and women who had never asked to be humanity's last defenders. The Vrelnath ships opened fire. Plasma bolts tore through space, bright and deadly. The orbital platforms returned fire, their old weapons spitting energy at the massive warships. It was like throwing rocks at armored vehicles. Hiren dove her fighter through the chaos. Enemy fire streaked past her cockpit. She locked onto a Vrelnath destroyer and fired her missiles. They struck the enemy shields but barely made a dent. These ships were so much stronger than anything the colony had. "Break left," another pilot shouted over the radio. Hiren jerked her controls just as a plasma bolt passed through where she had been. She saw the bolt hit another fighter. The small craft exploded in a brief flash of light. A pilot she had known since childhood was gone in an instant. "Focus on their weapon systems," Hiren ordered, fighting to keep her voice steady. "We can't destroy them, but we can slow them down." The fighters worked together using speed and coordination. They were like insects harassing a giant. Individually, they were no threat. Together, they were a nuisance. They managed to damage one destroyer's weapons array before the Vrelnath adjusted their tactics. "All fighters retreat," Jiwan ordered from the command center. "Fall back to defensive positions. Don't waste your lives," Hiren pulled back reluctantly. 3 fighters hadn't made it. 3 friends were dead, and they had barely scratched the enemy fleet. She landed her fighter in the bay and climbed out, her legs shaking. Down in the colony, Sora Lee was helping evacuate civilians to underground shelters. She held her 2 children close as explosions rumbled in the distance. Her husband was with the militia, defending the outer sectors. She tried not to think about whether she would see him again. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" her daughter asked, fear in her young voice. Sora forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart. Captain Park and the others will protect us." She hoped she wasn't lying. In the command center, Minho worked frantically at his console. The Vrelnath were jamming all communications, but he had an idea. If he could boost the distress beacon's power and change its frequency, maybe he could punch through the jamming. "Captain, I think I can get a message out," he said. "It'll only be a few seconds, but maybe someone will hear it." "Do it," Jiwan ordered. She didn't think anyone would answer, but at least the galaxy would know humans had fought to the end. The Vrelnath began bombing the colony's defensive installations. Shields flickered and failed. Buildings collapsed. People died. Jiwan watched the tactical display and made hard choices about where to focus their remaining defenses. 2 days passed. The colony fought with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. Ammunition was running low. Shields were failing. The Vrelnath were preparing for a ground invasion. On the 3rd day, Minho finally broke through the jamming. His hands trembled as he activated the distress beacon. He spoke into the microphone, not sure if anyone in the entire galaxy would hear. "This is Tayson Colony. We are human. We are the last. If anyone remembers us, if anyone cares, we are here. We are still fighting. We will not surrender, but we need help. If there are any humans left in the galaxy, please. We are here." The message transmitted for 3 seconds before the jamming cut it off. Minho slumped in his chair. He had tried. That was all he could do. Warlord Kreth intercepted the message on his flagship. He listened to it and laughed again. Pathetic. They beg for rescue from a species that died 3 centuries ago. Tomorrow we end this. The galaxy will remember that humans died as they lived, weak and alone. But far away, in a region of space no one had explored, something changed. A massive fleet that had been hidden for 300 years received the transmission. On the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable, Admiral Daeho Kim listened to the desperate message. His face was weathered and scarred. He had lived through Earth's destruction. He had spent 3 centuries rebuilding humanity in secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. That moment had arrived. "Navigation, plot a course for Tayson Colony," the Admiral ordered. His voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. "Maximum speed. Engineering, I don't care if we burn out the engines. We have family to save." 50 warships began to move. They were sleek and powerful, covered in the scars of countless battles. They had waited 300 years for this. They had rebuilt in darkness, preparing for the day they could reclaim their place in the galaxy. On Tayson, Jiwan didn't know help was coming. She stood at her window, watching the enemy fleet prepare for their final assault. She thought about Earth, about all the humans who had died, about the colony that would soon fall. But she stood straight. She wouldn't go quietly. Humanity had survived this long by refusing to quit. If this was their end, they would face it fighting. Tomorrow, the Vrelnath would attack. Tomorrow, Tayson would make its last stand. But Admiral Kim's fleet was coming, racing through hyperspace. And when they arrived, The galaxy would learn that humanity had never. Day 4 of the siege began with fire falling from the sky. Vrelnath dropships descended through Tayson's atmosphere like burning meteors. Inside each ship were soldiers trained for conquest. They had invaded dozens of worlds. One small human colony would be easy. They were wrong. Captain Jiwon Park watched the dropships land on the tactical display. Red markers appeared across the colony's outer sectors. All militia units engage the enemy. Make them fight for every meter. In the northern sector, Sora Lee's husband stood with his militia unit behind makeshift barricades. He was an engineer, not a soldier. But when your home is under attack, everyone fights. He gripped his rifle tighter as the Vrelnath troops advanced. The aliens were big, covered in thick scales and advanced armor. They moved with confidence, expecting quick victory. The militia opened fire. The first volley caught the Vrelnath by surprise. Several aliens fell. The rest took cover, suddenly cautious. "Keep firing," Sora's husband shouted. "Show them we're not easy prey." But the Vrelnath had better weapons and better training. They flanked the militia position. Plasma fire tore through the barricades. One by one, the defenders fell. Sora's husband saw his friends die around him. Behind the front lines, civilians were evacuating to shelters. Sora led a group of children through the underground tunnels. She heard explosions above them. Each boom made her think of her husband up there fighting. She had to believe he would survive. She had to keep these children safe. In the northern sector, the militia's position collapsed. The Vrelnath pushed forward, heading for a shelter entrance where hundreds of civilians were hiding. Sora's husband saw them coming. He looked at the other 2 surviving militia members. "We need to buy time," he said. "Hold them here as long as we can." They knew what that meant. This was their last stand. He thought of Sora and their children. He hoped they would understand. He hoped they would survive. The 3 men positioned themselves at a narrow corridor. They had limited ammunition and no backup. But they had something the Vrelnath didn't understand. They were fighting for their families. The Vrelnath charged. The militia fired until their weapons ran empty. Then they fought with tools and bare hands. They held the corridor for 6 precious minutes. Long enough for the shelter doors to seal. Long enough for the civilians to escape deeper underground. None of the 3 men survived. Later, when Sora learned what happened, she didn't cry. There was no time for tears. She held her children and told them their father was a hero. Then she found Captain Park. "Give me a weapon," Sora said. Her voice was quiet but hard as steel. "I'm an engineer. I can help fight." Jiwon looked at the woman who had just lost her husband. She saw grief there but also determination. "We need combat engineers to set traps and fortifications." "Are you sure?" "My husband bought us time," Sora answered. "I won't let that be wasted. Put me to work." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Hyeron Choi led a daring raid. Intelligence said a Vrelnath cruiser had crash-landed after the initial battle. If they could capture its technology, especially its shield generators, the colony might hold out longer. Hyeron took 5 volunteers and a transport shuttle. They flew low, avoiding enemy sensors. The crashed cruiser sat in a crater, damaged but mostly intact. Vrelnath guards patrolled around it. "We go in fast," Hyeron said. "Grab what we can and get out." No heroes. They landed the shuttle behind a ridge and approached on foot. The raid was messy and chaotic. They fought through guards, grabbed shield generators and weapons, and ran back to the shuttle under heavy fire. One volunteer didn't make it. But they escaped with valuable equipment. Captain Park personally congratulated them. "This gives us a few more days." "Good work." Dr. Minho Kang studied the captured Vrelnath technology. Something bothered him. The weapons used principles that seemed familiar. He dug through old records comparing data. Then he found it. The technology that destroyed Earth 300 years ago had the same energy signature as these Vrelnath weapons. "Captain, you need to see this," Minho said, pulling up his findings. "Earth's destruction wasn't an accident or natural disaster. Someone murdered our homeworld, and the Vrelnath were involved." Jiwon stared at the data. 300 years of thinking Earth had simply died. Now she learned it was genocide. Rage and grief warred inside her. "Are you certain?" 90% certain, Minho said quietly. "We need more data to prove it. But yes, I believe the Vrelnath either destroyed Earth or gave someone the weapons to do it." "Then we make them pay," Jiwon said simply, one way or another. On day 6, a new ship arrived in the system. It wasn't Vrelnath. Ambassador Telvin of the Galactic Concord came to observe. The Concord was supposed to maintain peace in the galaxy, but they mostly just watched and recorded history. Telvin was from an avian species with feathers and sharp eyes. He requested a meeting with Captain Park. She agreed, hoping for help. They met in the command center. Telvin looked around at the damaged equipment and exhausted officers. "I am here to document this conflict for the historical record," he said formally. "Document?" Jiwan couldn't believe it. "People are dying. The last human colony is under attack. And you're here to document? The Concord cannot interfere in sovereign disputes," Telvin replied. "According to our laws." "Your laws are worthless if they let genocide happen," Jiwan interrupted. "Help us, send ships. Tell the Vrelnath to stop. Do something." Telvin looked uncomfortable. "I sympathize with your situation, but I have my orders. The Concord will not intervene." Jiwan stood up, fury in her eyes. "Then the Concord is useless. You're all cowards. When humanity is extinct, I hope you remember that you could have helped and chose not to. Now get off my planet," Telvin left quietly. He returned to his ship feeling ashamed. The human captain was right. But he was just an ambassador. He couldn't change Concord policy. That same day, the Colony Council held an emergency meeting. Half the members wanted to surrender. They argued that continued resistance was suicide. Better to submit and maybe survive. The other half wanted to keep fighting. They argued that surrender meant slavery at best, extinction at worst. Captain Park listened to both sides. Then she stood. "I remember Earth," she said. "I watched our home burn. I've spent 300 years thinking we were alone, thinking humanity might fade away. But we're still here. We survived because we didn't quit." She looked at each council member. "Humans have always faced impossible odds. We've always been outnumbered, outgunned, pushed to the edge. And we've always stood up and said no more. That's what makes us human. Not our technology or our weapons. Our refusal to surrender. If we surrender now, humanity truly dies. Not our bodies, but our spirit. I won't let that happen. I'd rather die fighting than live on my knees. But this is your choice. Vote." The council voted, 7-5 in favor of continued resistance. It was close, but it was enough. Aboard the Vrelnath flagship, Commander Erix interrogated captured human prisoners. He expected them to break easily, but these humans surprised him. Even facing death, they remained defiant. One prisoner, a young woman, looked at Erix with contempt. "You'll lose," she said. "Maybe not today, but someday someone will stop you. Your species is extinct," Erix replied. "No one will avenge you," the woman smiled. "You don't understand humans. We never truly die. As long as one of us draws breath, humanity lives, and we have long memories." Something about her words disturbed Erix. He had been taught that humans were primitive scavengers, but these people fought with skill and courage. They adapted quickly. They never stopped trying. For the first time, Erix questioned his orders. On day 7, the Vrelnath prepared their final assault. Warlord Kreth gathered his officers. "Tomorrow we end this annoyance. The humans have fought well for primitives, but they're down to 30% strength. One more push and the colony falls." That night, Hyron sat in her battered fighter. She had survived every battle so far. Many of her friends hadn't. She looked at the stars and thought about what they were fighting for. "If we're the last humans," she whispered to herself, "then we need to make sure the galaxy remembers we were here. Remembers we fought. Remembers we never gave up." In deep space, Admiral Daho Kim's fleet pushed their engines beyond safe limits. They were 18 hours from Tayson now. 18 hours from saving their family. "All ships battle speed," the Admiral ordered. "Engineering, I don't care about engine damage. We can repair ships. We can't bring back the dead. Maximum speed." The fleet surged forward, 50 warships racing to answer a desperate call. 300 years of preparation was about to be tested. On Tayson, no one knew help was coming. They prepared for what they believed would be their last battle. Captain Park walked through the colony, speaking with soldiers and civilians. She wanted them to see her calm and confident. Inside, she was terrified, not for herself, but for all these people depending on her. Dr. Minho Kang maintained his distress beacon, broadcasting their situation continuously. He didn't expect anyone to answer, but maybe someday someone would find the transmission and know that humans had fought to the end. Sora tucked her children into their shelter bunks. They asked if Daddy was coming home. She told them he was watching over them. Then she went to help prepare the defenses, grief and determination driving her forward. The night passed slowly. Everyone knew tomorrow would decide everything. Day 8 dawned with death coming from above. Every Vrelnath warship opened fire simultaneously. The sky lit up with plasma fire. Tayson's shields flickered like dying candles. This was the final assault. Captain G1 Park stood in the command center watching section after section of the colony fall. The tactical display was mostly red now. They had maybe an hour before the shields failed completely. All remaining fighters launch, she ordered. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. This is it. Make every shot count. Lieutenant Hiram Choi ran to the fighter bay. Only 7 fighters remained operational. 7 fighters against 12 warships. She climbed into her cockpit and activated her systems. This was probably a one-way trip. She accepted that. The fighters launched into hell. Plasma bolts filled space like a deadly storm. Heron dove and weaved, relying on instinct and training. She fired at weapon systems, trying to reduce the bombardment. 1 gun destroyed. Then another. It wasn't enough. Dr. Minho Kang burst into the command center, nearly tripping over his own feet. His eyes were wild with excitement. Captain! Hyperspace signatures. Massive fleet inbound. Jiwan's heart sank. More Vrelnath ships. This was the end. How many? 50 contacts, Minho said. Then he grabbed her arm, his voice shaking. Captain, those aren't Vrelnath signatures. That's human FTL technology. Old Earth design. There are humans out there. For a moment, Jiwan couldn't process the words. Humans after 300 years of silence? It was impossible. But then the sensors confirmed it. 50 warships were dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. The ships were like nothing Jiwan had ever seen. Sleek and deadly, covered in battle scars and the insignias of lost colonies. New Beijing, Mars Dome, Kepler Station. Names she remembered from before Earth fell. Names she thought were lost forever. At the head of the fleet was a massive dreadnought, the Indomitable, and then a voice came through the communication channel, rough and weathered but unmistakably human. Tayson Colony, this is Admiral Daeho Kim of the Human Reclamation Fleet. We received your message. Sorry for the delay. We were a bit far out. Permission to engage hostile forces? The command center erupted. People were crying, laughing, shouting. 3 centuries of believing they were alone, and suddenly they had family. Jiwan tried to speak, but emotion choked her words. She swallowed hard and forced herself to respond. Permission granted, Admiral, and thank you. We thought we were the last. You were never alone, Captain, Admiral Kim replied. We just had to rebuild first. Now let's remind the galaxy why you don't mess with humans. The reclamation fleet accelerated into the battle. Their weapons came online and space lit up with a different kind of fire. Human railguns tore through Vrelnath shields like paper. Missiles locked onto targets with perfect precision. Fighter squadrons launched from carriers, moving with coordination that made the enemy look slow. Warlord Kreth watched his tactical display in disbelief. Where had these ships come from? Humans were supposed to be extinct. These vessels were advanced, powerful, and they fought with deadly efficiency. All ships defensive formation, Kreth ordered. But it was too late. 3 of his destroyers were already crippled. Another cruiser exploded as human torpedoes breached its reactor. Hiren heard the chatter on her radio. New voices, speaking Korean with different accents. Pilots from colonies she didn't know existed. Tayson fighters, this is New Soul Squadron. We're on your wing. Let's finish this together. She looked out her cockpit and saw dozens of friendly fighters joining her. Advanced models with better weapons and shields. But they treated her as an equal, following her lead through the battle. Together, the combined human force tore into the Vrelnath fleet. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a statement. This is what happens when you attack humans. Aboard the Vrelnath flagship, Commander Erix watched the slaughter. His doubts from earlier crystallized into certainty. This war was wrong. Humans weren't primitives. They were survivors who had rebuilt in secret, preparing for this moment. He made a decision that would mark him as a traitor. He accessed the weapons control and locked out the targeting systems on his section of the ship. The guns went silent. It wasn't much, but it was something. Warlord Kreth realized he was beaten. All ships retreat! Full speed! 8 of his warships were destroyed. The remaining 4 fled into hyperspace, running from the humans they had thought to conquer. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, Tayson Colony was saved. The shields were failing, buildings were damaged, and many had died. But they had survived. More than that, they had learned they weren't alone. Admiral Kim's shuttle landed at the main spaceport. Captain Park was there to meet him, along with Dr. Kang, Hyeron, and hundreds of colonists. They wanted to see the man who had saved them. The shuttle ramp lowered. Admiral Daiho Kim walked down and Jiwon gasped. His face was scarred and weathered. His hair was white, but his eyes were the eyes of someone who had survived Earth's fall, someone who remembered. He looked at Jiwon and saw the same memories in her face. Two survivors of humanity's darkest day meeting 3 centuries later. Captain Park, the Admiral said quietly, "It's good to see another face from the old days." Jiwon tried to maintain military composure, but tears ran down her face. "Admiral Kim, I thought we were the last. I thought humanity died with Earth." "We almost did," Kim admitted. "After Earth fell, we scattered. Colonies went dark, hiding from whoever destroyed our home. I spent 300 years finding survivors, rebuilding, preparing. We couldn't risk revealing ourselves until we were strong enough to defend what's left of humanity." He looked at the colonists gathered around them. "There are 12 human colonies now, 400 million people. We've been building ships, training forces, waiting for the right moment. Your distress call told us the time had come." Dr. Minho stepped forward, unable to contain his excitement. 400 million? 12 colonies? How did you keep it secret? "Carefully," Kim said with a slight smile. "We stayed in uncharted space. We salvaged and built. We learned from every mistake. And we never forgot who we are. We're human. We don't surrender. We don't fade away. We survive." That night, Tayson Colony held an impromptu celebration. Humans from the colony mixed with humans from the fleet. They shared stories of survival, of struggles, of keeping hope alive in the darkness. Hyeron met pilots from New Seoul, another Korean colony she never knew existed. They compared flying techniques and swapped stories. She realized she wasn't the last generation of human pilots. She was part of a continuing legacy. Sora held her children as they watched the fleet's ships orbit overhead, no longer symbols of threat but symbols of protection, of family. She thought of her husband's sacrifice. He had believed humanity was worth fighting for. Now she knew he was right. Dr. Minho spent the night talking with fleet scientists. They shared research, technology, knowledge. 3 centuries of separate development had led to different innovations. Together, they could accomplish so much more. In the command center, Admiral Kim and Captain Park talked late into the night. They shared memories of Earth, of what they had lost, but also of what they had preserved. "What happens now?" Jiwon asked. "We can't hide anymore. The galaxy knows we exist. Now we reclaim our place," Kim said firmly. "We rebuild Tayson. We reveal the other colonies. We show the galaxy that humanity is back, and we won't be pushed aside again." "The Vrelnath won't accept this," Jiwon warned. "They'll demand retribution." "Let them try," Kim replied. "We're done hiding. We're done being afraid. For 300 years, the galaxy thought humanity was extinct. Time to correct that assumption." In orbit, Ambassador Telvin watched the celebration from his ship. He had come to document human extinction. Instead, he had witnessed human resurgence. His hands trembled as he composed a message to the Galactic Concord Council. Urgent. Human species confirmed viable. Population, hundreds of millions. Technology, advanced. Military capability, significant. They are organized, unified, and no longer hiding. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact. The balance of galactic power has shifted. He sent the message and continued watching. The humans below were singing now. Songs from old Earth, passed down through generations. Songs of home, of hope, of never giving up. Telvin had seen many species in his career, but he had never seen anything like this. Humans had faced extinction and refused to accept it. They had spent 3 centuries preparing for a return. Now they were back, and the galaxy would never be the same. On Tayson, the celebration continued into the early morning. People who had thought they were alone discovering they were part of something bigger. A species that had been counted out, proving they weren't finished. Admiral Kim stood on a balcony looking at the crowd below. Captain Park joined him. Together they watched their people celebrate. "We did it," Jiwon said softly. "We survived." "We always do," Kim replied. "That's what it means to be human. We face impossible odds. We lose everything, and we keep going anyway. Earth is gone, but humanity lives. That's enough." Jiwon thought about the 300 years of loneliness, the centuries of believing she was among the last. Now she knew the truth. Humanity had never died. They had just been preparing. The galaxy thought it had seen the last of humans. The galaxy was wrong. Humanity was back, stronger than ever, and they would never hide again. 3 months after the battle for Taysan, the galaxy was still reacting to humanity's return. News traveled fast. A species thought extinct for 300 years had emerged with a powerful fleet and millions of citizens. Everyone had an opinion. The Galactic Concord called an emergency summit. Representatives from dozens of species gathered on the neutral station called Unity Point. Captain Jiwon Park and Admiral Daeho Kim traveled there to represent humanity. It was humanity's first diplomatic contact in centuries. As they entered the Grand Council chamber, every eye turned to them. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. A few looked openly hostile. The humans were no longer a historical footnote. They were a present reality. Ambassador Telvin stood to address the chamber. Honored delegates, we gathered to discuss the return of humanity to galactic affairs. As you know, the species was believed extinct. They are not. We must decide how to respond. The Vrelnath representative slammed his clawed hand on his podium. Respond?
They attacked our fleet, destroyed our ships.
This is an act of war. Jiwon stood calmly. She had prepared for this. Your fleet attacked a civilian colony without provocation. We defended our home. That's not war. That's survival. You should have surrendered, the Vrelnath spat. Your species was finished. You should have accepted extinction? Jiwon interrupted, her voice cold. We should have accepted extinction? Is that what you're saying? That we should have quietly died to make things convenient for you? The chamber fell silent. Jiwon continued. The Vrelnath Empire invaded our world. They gave us 1 hour to surrender or die. They mocked us for being human, for still existing. And when we defended ourselves, they call it an act of war. She looked around the chamber at all the different species. Where was the Galactic Concord when Taysan was being attacked? Where was galactic justice? We sent a distress call. Ambassador Telvin came to document our extinction, not to help us. If the galaxy had intervened, none of this would have happened. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Telvin looked down at his notes, ashamed. We didn't start this war, Jiwon said firmly. We didn't invade anyone. We defended our home. If that makes us dangerous, then every species here is dangerous, because we all have the right to survive. Admiral Kim stood beside her. Humanity has been silent for 300 years. We watched from the shadows, rebuilt our strength, and hoped we would never need to reveal ourselves. The Vrelnath forced our hand. Now we're here, not as conquerors, but as equals. Treat us as such, or we'll chart our own path. The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted to restrict human territory and military power. Others argued for cooperation. The chamber was divided. Back on Tyson, Dr. Minho Kang continued his research. The captured Vrelnath technology still bothered him. He ran test after test, comparing energy signatures. Finally, he found what he was looking for. Proof. Definitive proof that Vrelnath weapons research had been involved in the technology that destroyed Earth. His hands shook as he compiled the data. This wasn't just a border dispute. This was evidence of genocide. The Vrelnath had either destroyed Earth themselves or sold the weapons to someone who did. He sent an encrypted message to Admiral Kim at the summit. The Admiral read it during a break in the sessions. His face became stone. He showed it to Captain Park. This changes everything, Jiwon whispered. If we can prove the Vrelnath were involved in Earth's destruction, then we're not just defending a colony, Kim finished. We're seeking justice for billions of dead. Meanwhile, aboard a civilian transport heading toward human space, Commander Erix sat in his cabin. He had defected from the Vrelnath fleet after the battle. His conscience wouldn't let him continue serving an empire that committed atrocities. He brought intelligence with him. Files on Vrelnath weapons sales, records of planetary invasions, and most importantly, evidence that confirmed what Dr. Kang had discovered. The Vrelnath had sold planet-killing weapons to extremist groups 300 years ago. They knew what those weapons would be used for. Erix requested asylum from the human fleet. He wanted to help bring the truth to light. It wouldn't bring Earth back, but maybe it would prevent future genocides. Across the galaxy, hidden human colonies began revealing themselves. New Sol, Mars Dome, Kepler Station, and 9 others. Each broadcast a message: we are human. We survived. We are united. The galaxy reacted with shock. 400 million humans. 12 colonies. Advanced technology. This wasn't a remnant species clinging to survival. This was a resurgent power. Some species saw opportunity. They reached out with trade offers and alliance proposals. Others saw threat. They whispered about containing humans before they became too powerful. Lieutenant Hyeron Choi found herself training mixed human and alien pilot groups. Some aliens were curious about human tactics. Others were openly suspicious. She treated everyone with respect but made it clear that humans wouldn't be pushed around. One alien pilot, an insectoid named Click, approached her after a training session. "Your people fight differently," Click said. "More aggressive. More willing to take risks." "We fight to survive," Hyeron replied. "When you've faced extinction, you learn that playing it safe isn't always the best strategy. Sometimes you have to take the risk." Click's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "That is either wisdom or madness," Hyeron smiled. "With humans, it's usually both." Back at Unity Point, the Concord proposed terms for human reintegration. Limited territory. Weapons inspections. Reparations to the Vrelnath for destroyed ships. Essentially second-class citizenship. Admiral Kim listened to the proposal. Then he stood and spoke clearly. "No, we don't accept those terms. We're not begging for permission to exist. We're here as equals or we're not here at all." "You're in no position to make demands," the Vrelnath representative snarled. "Aren't we?" Kim replied calmly. "We have 12 colonies, 400 million citizens, and a fleet that just defeated yours. We've survived 300 years of isolation. We can survive without the Concord's approval if necessary, but it would be better for everyone if we work together." He pulled up the evidence from Dr. Kang and Commander Irex. "We also have proof that the Vrelnath Empire sold the weapons that destroyed Earth. Proof of genocide. If you want to discuss reparations, perhaps we should start there." The chamber erupted. The Vrelnath representative tried to deny it, but the evidence was solid. Energy signatures, transaction records, testimony from a defector. The Vrelnath had profited from Earth's destruction. The summit descended into chaos. Some species called for investigations. Others worried about starting a war. The Vrelnath delegation walked out, threatening consequences. Ambassador Telvin pulled Admiral Kim aside. "You've made enemies here today." "We already had enemies," Kim replied. "At least now everyone knows where they stand. Humanity isn't hiding anymore. We're not apologizing for surviving. The galaxy can accept us or oppose us. Either way, we're staying." Talks broke down completely. The human delegation returned to their ship. Captain Park looked worried. "We may have pushed too hard." The Vrelnath looked ready to start another war. "They won't," Kim said. "Not yet. They're going to regroup, plan, and then strike when they think we're vulnerable. We need to be ready." He was right. In the Vrelnath Empire, Warlord Kreth faced a court-martial for his failure at Taysan. The Empire needed a scapegoat for the defeat, and he was convenient. They blamed him for everything and sentenced him to execution, but Kreth wasn't going quietly. He had loyal followers. Together, they staged a prison break. They stole ships and disappeared into the black market underworld. Kreth was now a rogue warlord with nothing to lose and revenge burning in his heart. He used his connections to acquire something terrible, a planet-killer weapon, a prototype based on the same technology that destroyed Earth. And he had a target in mind, Taysan Colony, the place that had humiliated him. The place where the human resurgence began. Kreth recorded a message and sent it directly to Admiral Kim. "You humiliated me, human. You cost me everything. Now I'll finish what the universe started 300 years ago. By dawn tomorrow, Taysan burns, and there's nothing you can do to stop me." The message reached the Reclamation Fleet Command. Officers analyzed the threat and confirmed it was real. Kreth had a rogue fleet and a planet killer. He was 18 hours from Taysan. The problem was that the fleet was scattered. Some ships were on diplomatic missions. Others were patrolling distant colonies. They couldn't assemble a full defense force in time. Admiral Kim tried to order ships back to Taysan immediately, but Captain Park, now serving as Taysan's planetary defense coordinator, sent a message back. "Don't rush back. We'll hold them off. We did it before, we can do it again. Taysan knows how to fight." "Captain, you can't—" Kim started to protest. "We stood alone before," Jiwan interrupted. "We can do it again. This time we know we're not the last humans. That's enough. That knowledge makes us stronger than any weapon. She closed the channel before he could argue further. Then she turned to her officers. They all knew what was coming. Another siege, another desperate fight for survival. But this time something was different. They weren't fighting because they had no choice. They were fighting because they chose to, because Tayson represented something important, proof that humanity could survive anything. Kreth's rogue fleet appeared at the edge of Tayson's system exactly on schedule. 15 warships, stolen and scavenged from across the black market, and at the center of his formation, the planet killer weapon, a massive cannon mounted on a captured freighter, powered by stolen technology. Captain Jiwon Park watched them appear on the tactical display. Her colony had better defenses now, upgraded shields, more weapons platforms, but they were still outnumbered, still outgunned. All stations, battle stations, she ordered. Her voice was steady. 3 months ago, she had been terrified facing the Vrelnath fleet. Now she was just determined. Launch all fighters. Activate every defense. Show them what Tayson is made of. Lieutenant Hyer and Choi led her squadron into space. They had 18 fighters now, all upgraded with reclamation fleet technology. Better than last time, but still facing terrible odds. She opened a channel to her pilots. All right, people. You know the target. That planet killer weapon has to be destroyed. Whatever it takes. For Tayson. For humanity. Let's fly. The battle began immediately. Kreth's fleet opened fire with everything they had. They weren't trying to capture the colony this time. They were trying to destroy it. Plasma fire rained down on Tayson's shields. The fighters dodged through the barrage, targeting enemy weapon systems. Hyer flew with practiced skill, every maneuver perfect. She destroyed one gun emplacement, then another, but there were so many enemies. Kreth sat on his command ship watching the battle with bitter satisfaction. Target the planet killer, he ordered. Charge the main weapon. In 6 hours, Tayson burns, and humanity learns they should have stayed hidden. Down on Tayson, civilians evacuated to underground shelters once again. Sora helped organize the evacuation, keeping people calm. Her children held onto her hands, scared but trusting their mother to keep them safe. Mom, are we going to be okay? Her son asked. Yes, Sora said firmly. She had lost her husband defending this colony. She wouldn't lose her children. Captain Park and the others will protect us. And if they can't, we'll protect ourselves. That's what humans do. In the command center, Dr. Minho and Commander Erix worked on their plan. They had built an EMP device powerful enough to disrupt the planet killer's shields. But someone had to deliver it. Someone had to fly close enough to that weapon to use it. It's a one-way trip, Erix said quietly. The pilot might be able to eject at the last second, but the chances of survival are small. Then we need someone brave, Minho replied. Someone who understands what's at stake. They didn't have to look far. Lieutenant Hyer volunteered immediately when she heard the plan. I'll do it, she said simply. Just get that device ready. Captain Park tried to refuse. Hiren, this is suicide. We can find another way. There is no other way, Hyer replied. You taught me that humans don't give up. You taught me that we do what's necessary. Well, this is necessary. Let me do my job. Jiwon looked at the young pilot. She saw determination there, pride, courage, everything humanity represented. She wanted to refuse. But Hyer was right. All right, Jiwon said quietly. But you eject at the last possible second. That's an order. Survival is not optional, Hyer smiled. Yes, Captain. I'll do my best. Hours passed. The battle raged. Tayson's defenses held, but barely. The shields were down to 40%. Orbital platforms were destroyed one by one. The colony was losing. Kreth watched with satisfaction. Planet killer charging at 90%. Almost time. Soon the galaxy will forget about Tayson. Humans will learn their place. In orbit, Hyer loaded the EMP device into an old Tayson corvette. It was a small ship, fast but fragile. She climbed into the cockpit and ran through her pre-flight checks. Everything was green. She opened a channel to the command center. This is Lieutenant Choi beginning my run. It's been an honor serving with you all. The honor was ours, Captain Park replied, her voice thick with emotion. Come back alive. That's an order. I'll try, Hyer said. Then she cut the channel and launched. The corvette accelerated toward the planet killer. Enemy fire converged on her immediately. They knew what she was trying to do. Plasma bolts streaked past her cockpit. Her shields took hit after hit. Hyarin dodged and weaved using every trick she knew. She flew like she had never flown before. The Corvette's hull was taking damage. Alarms screamed. Systems failed. But she kept going, closer. The planet killer was huge now, filling her view screen. She could see its shields shimmering. Just a little closer. Just a few more seconds, a plasma bolt hit her engine. The Corvette shuddered. Alarms went critical. But she was close enough now. She activated the EMP device and aimed straight for the planet killer's shields. At the last second, she ejected. The escape pod blasted away from the Corvette. She tumbled through space, watching as her ship slammed into the shields and detonated. The EMP burst rippled across the planet killer's defenses. The shields flickered, failed, collapsed. The weapon was exposed. All fighters, all platforms, fire on the planet killer. Captain Park ordered. Everything we have, now! Every remaining human weapon fired simultaneously. Missiles, railguns, plasma cannons, energy beams. They all converged on the exposed planet killer. The weapon's charging core destabilized. Kreth realized too late what was happening. No! All ships pull back. The planet killer exploded. Not a small explosion. A massive detonation that sent shockwaves through space. The freighter carrying it disintegrated. 3 nearby warships caught in the blast were crippled. Kreth's flagship took heavy damage. Warlord Kreth screamed in rage as his command center burned. His last thoughts were of the humans who had beaten him again. Then his ship's reactor went critical and he died in fire. The remaining rogue ships, leaderless and damaged, tried to flee. But at that moment, hyperspace signatures appeared across the system. The reclamation fleet had arrived. Admiral Daeho Kim's voice came through every channel. This is the human reclamation fleet to all hostile vessels. Power down your weapons and surrender. You've already lost. The rogue ship surrendered. The battle was over. Tayson had survived again. Search and rescue teams found Hyarin's escape pod drifting in space. She was battered and bruised but alive. When they brought her back to the colony, people cheered. She had saved them all. In the command center, Captain Park hugged the young pilot tightly. You disobeyed my order about survival being non-optional, she said with tears in her eyes. I survived, didn't I? Hyarin replied with a weak grin. Just barely counts. The aftermath brought changes. The Vrelnath Empire, embarrassed by Kreth's rogue actions and facing evidence of their involvement in Earth's destruction, sued for peace. They offered reparations and signed treaties guaranteeing human sovereignty. The Galactic Concord formally recognized humanity as a full member with equal status. Ambassador Telvin personally apologized for the Concord's failure to help during the first siege. Captain G1 Park accepted the apology. We can't change the past, she said, but we can build a better future. Humanity doesn't seek revenge. We seek partnership. Help us build something better. 6 months later, Tayson Colony hosted the first Human Unity Festival. People from all 12 human colonies came to celebrate. Aliens from dozens of species attended as guests. The rebuilt capital was beautiful. New buildings rose where old ones had fallen. Parks and monuments honored those who had died defending the colony. Children played in streets that had once run with blood. Admiral Daeho Kim and Captain Ji-won Park stood on a balcony overlooking the celebration. 2 survivors of Earth's fall, watching humanity's future unfold before them. Do you think we've truly reclaimed our place? Ji-won asked. Kim considered the question. Then he smiled, something he rarely did. We never lost it. We just had to remind the galaxy and ourselves that humanity doesn't quit. We were abandoned, counted out, written off as extinct, and we came back stronger. Below them, Lieutenant Hyarin had been promoted to Wing Commander. She trained new pilots from both human and alien species, building bridges through shared experience. Dr. Minho Kang led the Human Galactic Science Initiative, bringing together researchers from across the galaxy. His optimism had become infectious, inspiring cooperation and discovery. Sora Lee had remarried and now served on the Colony Council, ensuring civilian voices were heard in government decisions. Her children grew up knowing their father's sacrifice meant something. Commander Irix worked with human scientists, still seeking full justice for Earth's destruction. He had found a new home among people who valued honor and courage. In orbit above Taysan, the reclamation fleet maintained watch, not as conquerors or warriors, but as protectors, guardians of humanity's hard-won future. That evening, children from Taysan schools performed a special ceremony. They read a message that would be broadcast to all human colonies and throughout the galaxy. We are human. We are survivors. We are builders. We are explorers. You thought the galaxy abandoned us. You were wrong. The galaxy couldn't abandon us because humanity never abandons itself. We are here. We are strong. And we're not going anywhere. The crowd erupted in cheers, humans and aliens together, celebrating not conquest but survival, not dominance but cooperation, not revenge but hope. Admiral Kim turned to Captain Park. What now? We've reclaimed our place. What's next for humanity? Jiwan looked at the stars above Taysan,